name is Adam Greenfader. I'm the managing partner of AG&T, and I'm with Brad Dean, who runs the DMO, Destination Marketing Organization in Puerto Rico. How's it going, Brad?
Hey, it's going great. Greetings from sunny Puerto Rico.
So, you've been with Discover Puerto Rico for a few years now. If you could just explain a little bit about what initially attracted you to Puerto Rico and why you decided to come on board.
Sure. Well, Discover Puerto Rico is the official destination marketing organization for the island. We opened in July of 2018. I actually relocated to Puerto Rico about 2 years ago in May of 2018 to create this new DMO. So we opened in July 2018. And the mission for Discover Puerto Rico is simple, and that is to put the transformative power of travel at work for the people of Puerto Rico.
When you first got to Puerto Rico, were there any misconceptions that you initially faced, both personal and business-wise about the island and what people thought of Puerto Rico?
Yeah, the interesting thing for me that was a total surprise was just how the brand of Puerto Rico had not been differentiated. And there's multiple reasons for that. The best summary I could give you is that after dozens of focus groups and extensive qualitative and quantitative testing, what we determined is that if Puerto Rico were an ice cream, people thought it was vanilla. Now, if you visited Puerto Rico, you know just the opposite. You have this extraordinary island with beautiful beaches, lush mountain landscapes, the only rainforest in the National Park Service, 3 of the world's 5 bioluminescent bays, complemented by this rich, vibrant culture and centuries of history, not to mention great foods, no passport, no currency exchange. And nowadays, the most important thing is your phone works when you get off the plane. So,
can you give us some numbers? I mean, what type of cruise and airlift, for example, were you looking at in 2019 and projecting for 2020?
So we saw an increase of about 14% in demand. But Adam, one of the most amazing things that happened was not only did we see this increase in demand last year, we also saw the revenue per available room increase in the lodging sector. And that's pretty extraordinary when you consider that Puerto Rico had had a huge increase in the inventory that was available after Hurricane Maria. Perhaps the most encouraging sign of all was the increase in air service. So we saw an overall about a 4% increase in year-over-year deployments in 2019. And when we looked into the first quarter of 2020, we were incredibly excited. The airlines had increased their capacity by 23%. So for every 4 seats that had been flying to the market, they were adding a 5th. And the early projections were that group and leisure travel would be up in the first 3 months of this year. We really felt like Puerto Rico had hit its stride and was well positioned to exceed all expectations in 2020.
That's fascinating. A lot of people don't know, first of all, you don't need a passport to go to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is part of the United States. And I think what's also interesting in terms of airlift is that Puerto Rico acts as a hub for the rest of the Caribbean and parts of Latin America. Could you talk a little bit about Puerto Rico's central role in that respect?
Yeah, Puerto Rico in many ways is a gateway to and through the Caribbean region and into South America. And that's nothing new. In fact, centuries ago, Puerto Rico served in that same role when obviously much of the commerce was conducted via maritime. And so today, what you see in Puerto Rico pre-COVID was a really strong presence of network carriers like American, Delta, and United. Of course, a strong presence from JetBlue in key markets along the eastern seaboard. But then we've also seen a lot of growth in ultra low-cost carriers like Spirit and Frontier, and then add a Southwest Airlines. And what you find is that not only does Puerto Rico have greater air service than any other Caribbean island, but we serve as that point-to-point connection for many, many other carriers who will provide lift from those staying in Puerto Rico who are looking to get out to the other islands, or those who are simply looking at making a convenient connection. And I think that's one of the things that really sets Puerto Rico apart from a lot of other island economies. We have an extraordinary airport system, 3 commercial airports, with the main one being in San Juan. And the good news for Puerto Rico's future is our current airport is nowhere near capacity. So as we think about dramatically increasing airlift, the future is very, very bright and expansive for Puerto Rico. And I think that also bodes well for Puerto Rico continuing to be a gateway to and through the Caribbean and to South America.
The other point that we heard this week is that apparently Puerto Rico has obtained, I believe it's from the FAA, some kind of international status to be able to receive flights now that it wasn't able to before.
Yeah, so this is an effort that was led by our Department of Commerce and in particular Secretary Manuel Leboy. And it's been a long-standing effort that he and others joined in early on after Hurricane Maria to position Puerto Rico as an economic hub in the Caribbean. And essentially what this does is it allows certain carriers, particularly international carriers, more expansive opportunities and flexibility as it relates to cargo. And of course, as you know, there's a critical mass of air traffic and you have to be able to make the numbers work. So we're hopeful that this will accomplish a couple of things. First of all, it reinforces Puerto Rico's central position as a gateway to and through the Caribbean. It certainly opens up some possible economic development opportunities down the road, or if nothing else, makes the ability to transport cargo into the island a little more economically efficient. And, you know, there's also a case to be made that if you have more cargo flying in and we can show growth in demand, that it's going to position Puerto Rico for, if not expanded air service, at least strengthening the air service it already has. And we think this is a good sign that Puerto Rico is well positioned to not only get back to where it was pre-COVID and pre-Hurricane Maria, but hopefully capture some market share. And especially when you think about the environment we're in now, where there's a lot of active discussion taking place about bringing manufacturing back to the United States, and particularly when you think about pharmaceuticals, this could very well play into the near-term strategy for economic development and diversification in Puerto Rico.
We've always spoken about, you know, making tourism not just in the metropolitan area, but extending it throughout the island, and you know, and having people visit, you know, you know, all the beautiful wonders that Puerto Rico has, just besides beach, in addition to beaches. You know, when we look at the footprint of manufacturing, you can see that it literally goes from coast to coast. And have you guys started to think about how perhaps there can be some synergy between increases in manufacturing throughout the island and tourism?
What I think is really fascinating about Puerto Rico, and perhaps one of the greatest opportunities, both in the tourism sector and otherwise, is what lies outside the metropolitan area. For many visitors, they may only spend a night or two in Old San Juan or the surrounding areas thinking they've seen Puerto Rico. And yet, when you get out and see the historic community of Ponce, which is much like the Charleston of the Caribbean, when you get over to the West Coast, which has a California type vibe, when you look in the center part of the island where you have extraordinary mountain ranges and some unique attractions like El Toro Verde, and all around and in between, you have these unique communities that really are well positioned to offer a unique tourism experience. And when you think about adding other facets to the economy around that, it signifies that Puerto Rico truly is an island of opportunity. And we're encouraged that not only have we embarked upon a new journey in positioning Puerto Rico's tourism brand at a whole new level over the past couple of years, we have a sister organization, Invest Puerto Rico, who is doing much the same on the economic development side. So it's a firm commitment by the island to use private sector leadership to partner and collaborate with the government to elevate Puerto Rico's status, not only as a great tourism destination, but hopefully a place where manufacturing and other industry sectors can see expansion opportunities in the near future.
You know, when I speak to people about Puerto Rico, and I always ask a question, I say, what percentage do you think Puerto Rico's GDP of tourism is? I believe the last number was 6.75% or 7%. You see that as an opportunity for Puerto Rico?
Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity. And no matter what study you look at, the one thing we can all agree, it's not high enough. It certainly should be much, much higher. And one of the greatest challenges Puerto Rico has faced in its path, and I think it's a great textbook case on how not to position your destination, is that while there's been some good marketing in the past, it's been very inconsistent. Typically, every new administration, which has been customary changed every 4 years, would bring in new marketing ideas and new research and new branding. And just imagine if, you know, McDonald's every 4 years got rid of the golden arches, changed their menu, fired Michael Jordan, and came out with a whole new identity. You and I wouldn't know what to expect when we pull up to the drive-thru the next time. And unfortunately, that's been what Puerto Rico has done for the last 30 plus years, is continuously changing its message, its brand position, and its identity to the consumer. So what you find is a lot of consumers just aren't sure what to expect with Puerto Rico, and therefore the growth hasn't come anywhere near what other islands have done. My hope is that in the not too distant future, we'll see GDP numbers in the low to mid teens, which I think Puerto Rico is certainly capable of delivering. So I think this post-COVID travel that we often refer to as a new normal is going to challenge all of us to not only think differently about how we market the destination, but how we deliver the experience. And in some respects, it gives us a way to kind of reset and maybe do it the right way. It's interesting to think that 90 days ago, the hot topic in tourism worldwide was over-tourism. Nobody's complaining about over-tourism today, but we are all asking ourselves, what does the new normal look like, and how do we take advantage of this opportunity as a reset to rethink and reposition the destination as we recover?
How are you starting to think about what the new travel checklist is going to look like?
This is a really interesting space when you think about for several years now, I guess at least the last 20 or so, our definition of safety and security in travel and tourism has largely been centered around protecting communities and visitors and residents from terrorism or other violent acts. And now we have to navigate this intersection between public health and travel much more closely. And it's really got to be a part of the conversation. To paraphrase Jerry Maguire, it's going to be show me the cleaning, show me the hygiene. A few things we're doing is we have been very actively engaged in efforts with the U.S. Travel Association and also the United States Travel and Tourism Advisory Board, which are both addressing this at a very, very high level. In fact, the U.S. Travel Association has come out with a very thorough set of principles and protocols that can be applied to just about every business along the travel continuum. The research tells us, though, that the public believes that a joint affirmation between credible medical authorities and the federal government will go a long way towards restoring confidence. But at the end of the day, we've got to deliver on that promise. And the promise now has to be that we're going to do everything we can to limit the risk of you contracting an infectious disease when you're traveling. And hopefully, if we can execute properly at the local levels, we'll see the travel and tourism industry rebound.
You know, that's going to be advantageous for Puerto Rico going forward, to be able to convince travelers that if you need a Walgreens, or you need to fill your prescriptions or whatnot, you know, this is the U.S.
You can't drive very far without seeing a CVS or a Walgreens. You certainly don't have to stretch to find a Walmart. So while Puerto Rico does offer a rich, vibrant culture that's unique to the island, and that comes with a lot of extraordinary businesses in just about every facet of travel and tourism that are somewhat unique to Puerto Rico, for those that are looking for the consistency and the known brands that you would find commonly in the United States, you certainly don't lack those. So it gives us kind of the best of both worlds. And I think that's going to be important for a couple of reasons. Obviously, for those that are a little tentative about traveling internationally, but are looking for that unique cultural experience, Puerto Rico can fit that niche. But also when you think about tour operators and travel advisors and meeting planners who are putting their credibility on the line for somebody else, they want that added assurance. And this really hasn't been a part of the conversation today for most of us, but it's going to be now. So demonstrating that we're able to deliver on that expectation that you're going to be safe when you come here is going to be incredibly important. And being able to position ourselves as part of the United States, especially knowing the U.S. travel and tourism industry has jumped out pretty quickly on setting a lot of these guidelines and establishing new protocols, I think puts us in a very enviable position compared to other islands.
Future, besides, you know, being aware of the health and conscious of the health, I mean, do you think it's going to change in any other significant way?
I think this downtime for us gives the travel and tourism industry our George Bailey moment, our opportunity to see what the world is like without travel. And it's pretty ugly. I think most of us are realizing that there's a lot greater value to travel and tourism than maybe we realized. And while we're pretty good in our industry at talking about economic impact and taxes generated and jobs created, and all of that's important, I think we've oftentimes missed the opportunity to think and talk and plan along the spectrum of what travel and tourism does for you and I as individuals. Travel lifts spirits, it connects people, it leads to progress, it creates commerce, not to mention that there's a whole wealth of studies that show that when you travel, you're more likely to be healthy, happy, and productive at work. And so I'm hopeful that out of this terrible economic disaster that we're experiencing will come some positive, productive moments of progress for the travel and tourism industry. And I think it starts with thinking and communicating differently about safety and security and about the value of travel.
Well, those are some really important words, and I know that I will be thinking about them, and I'm sure you will for many years to come. And I appreciate you taking the time with speaking with us, Pratt.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.